Hi, I'm Ranjan Malik. I'm an innovation facilitator based in Bangalore, India. I'm a part of an organization called Irwan Innovation Consulting. We help organizations innovate by design. We work with organizations across industry spectrum. We work with organizations across geographies, so that gives us a very interesting perspective around how different organizations or different parts of the world, entities in different parts of the world engage with innovation. I think we're living in very, very interesting times right now, where the world was truly siloed a few years back. Geographies were very, very not so connected in terms of there were countries, and within countries there were states which would not talk to each other. It wasn't easy to connect. Organizations within industries would only look at themselves and their own benchmarks, would not look outside. They couldn't. But today it's such a connected world where organizations, where countries, where individuals can connect with far easily. Now, in this kind of an interesting connected world, what is happening is that we are discovering each other. It's a very interesting discovery that's happening. Thanks to the fact that we could not talk to each other, different entities have grown very differently and have grown really well. Now, IT has grown really well on one side, and FMCG is growing well on the other side, and manufacturing is growing very, very differently. Japan grew very differently, US grew differently, India and emerging markets grew very differently. Suddenly, when we find ourselves connected with each other, we're discovering each other. We're discovering each other's strengths. We are discovering complementarity. We are discovering the fact that we can learn from each other. Amazingly, if you see, Europe today is like a very well-oiled machinery. You know, look at any society, any country in Europe. The metros work well, the markets work well, so everything is well-defined. So a lot of radical innovation happened in the past, but now if you see the last two generations, what they have, they inherited was a very well-oiled machine which had to be maintained well. So a whole lot of very interesting small and incremental innovation that has happened. A lot of tweaking that has happened. Look at in contrast, look at the world in the emerging markets. A lot of chaos. A lot of first world and third world coexisting with each other. A lot of radical experimentation happening. Look at any city in India, for example. It's a crucible where a large number of experimentation happening. There's a lot of experimentation happening with a lot of different things. Now, this is the opportunity we're talking about. We're saying that while third world can learn from the first world in terms of what they have already experimented with and excelled and optimized and pick up from there, we are today. We look around the world and say which is the best telecom solution for us, and we look at the US, we look at Europe, and we look at the other countries. We pick the best. We shop around and we pick the best for ourselves. Now, but we start to pick it up, create new combinations, and experiment with it in very radically different contexts. Now, when that begins to happen, those solutions begin to grow very differently. And you might hit upon solutions which are not just good for you, but could be good for the other world. Now, that's the blowback potential. Now, I might create something in India today because our reference points are different. They are radical by developed standards. They are sometimes ridiculous. Now, the solution that might emerge from these kinds of contexts might be great for the developed world too. But that is a solution that developed world might not hit upon because your reference points are different. Let me give you an example. The world's cheapest car that's come out of Tatas have created the world's cheapest car called Nano. Could Europe have even looked at a car like that? Maybe not. But the cheapest car in Europe would be, say, 6,000, 7,000 euros. Now, this is a car which is 1,600 euros. Now, why would Europe not look at a car like that? Because everyone out there can afford a car which is 6,000, 7,000 euros. They don't have a need to cater to a segment which looks for a cheaper car. But here we're saying we will create a car which is no more than 1,600 euros. Now, that would sound ridiculous to a European. Say, why would you? And surely Europe or any developed world can dismiss the car and say, oh, but that's a car which is good enough for the developing world, not for us. It's a third world kind of a car. Yes, we can dismiss it. Yes, we can say, is it a two-wheeler which is masquerading as with a car shell on it? But after a while, it can get very interesting for the developed world too. They say, if this is a company that has truly created a car at 1,700 euros, which is a good enough car for third world, they have the capability, thanks to whatever they've innovated in, whether in product or in processes or in business models, they have the capability to create a first world car for say 3,000, 4,000 euros. Now that's the scary part. Now how come this kind of a car came out of a world like ours? Because the reference points that we work with are so different, and we say we must create a car within these boundary conditions, and so it has a blowback potential. We can now take this car into the developed world, and surely we'll have another segment and another need, another application of it there. So interesting times. The world is connecting, discovering each other, and benefiting from each other.